Well, Sierra, welcome to. I would say it's our first recording of the new year.
Yes.
Of 2024. First recording of season 3 of Red Wine Reads. So excited. And I thought we had to start off with a bang. So,
of course.
Here we are. Talking about the legendary ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Yay!
Sarah, how long have you wanted to read this book on this podcast? I want to know.
So, since I read her books and I started this podcast, I think it would have been probably since then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited because actually out of all of Sarah's books, this is the only one I hadn't technically read. And that has to do with the fact that my friend was telling me about the series when she had first started it. And she's like, I don't know if you'd like the first book, but like getting into the other books, like you would like, I don't know if you would like the world building. So it's kind of like dipping my toes in. And then I just kind of skipped over it. I went ahead and bought the second one, and so she was like, yeah, I don't know if you would have liked the first one, but I definitely think you'll like all the other ones. It's just like the world building's a lot, and come to find out, I absolutely love her world building, so it doesn't even matter.
Fascinating. That's an interesting point. I mean, I don't know, like, I guess you totally could just, like, keep, I don't know. The first book, there's not a whole lot of complicated plot line that you can kind of get it just from talking to someone.
I think the Sarah J. Maas girlies will be mad at me for saying that. But it is the truth. And like, I went back and read it, but I didn't have the same experience as everyone else in regards to certain characters or falling in love with certain characters the way that like other people did. So,
okay.
Sorry. Well, I read it now.
Yeah. We'll get into it. This is kind of fun because for me, the first time I heard ACOTAR was through Sierra, and I had no idea it was an acronym. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'll just like nod and, yeah, we should read that. And then I've been seeing it all over everywhere, and I've done a really, really, really good job at not spoiling things for myself. So, like, I literally don't know anything. I always, like, if I see something pop up, I scroll through it right away. So, I don't have any context of what happens in the rest of the series. I don't have any context of, like, who is who past this first book. So, you're really getting a very fun listening experience with a complete ACOTAR virgin here. So, this is fun.
And this makes me think, like, for us, we should not read the third Crescent City until you're finished with these.
Yeah.
I can read. I mean, I know I can read it because I know. But you need to not read it until you're done with this series, I think.
Well, the good thing is I can't even remember how the second Crescent City series ended. So I'm going to, I want to reread them anyways. So we're deep. We're going to go deep into Sarah J. Maas this year. So here we go.
I'm so excited.
It's our year. So this, let's get started with some fun quick facts that, everyone probably knows, but, here we are. So this book was published in 2015, but really gained attention in the last, I would say, 2 years or so, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
This is book 1 of a 5-book series. There's like a book that's kind of I don't even know what you would call it, like a transitional.
I would say the Massiverse.
Yes.
It relates. So you have A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames right now.
Yes.
And then she's coming out, or she's working on the 6th book, I guess.
The 6th book. Okay. Here we are. The first book has a 4.2 out of 5 on Goodreads. This is where I got so confused because I was reading this book at my lunch break, and I'm and my friend, like, everyone in my office has read this too, so they're all like waiting like on the edge of their seat, like, for me to read this so that they can finally talk about it in the office. And because again, strict boundaries. I was like, y'all cannot talk about this book when I'm here. Like, I want this to be fresh. And so I'm reading it, and I text my friend Lindsay, who's in the other room, and I was like, this is a YA book? Like, exclamation, question mark. And she goes, no. And I go, what? And so I was like, how did I get that in my head? This is why, because it was nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for young adult fantasy and science fiction in 2015, which confused me. And so I Googled, is ACOTAR YA? And it says it's for new adults, a publishing term that denotes a book for people in their 20s that have graduated from the YA genre. So that makes more sense. Because
I think she's kind of gone away from even calling, like, and yes, because her other books, her whole Throne of Glass series is YA. And so people kind of automatically kind of put this into that same category. But as she's progressed, she's kind of been like, no, it's not really YA. It's a little bit more new adult. And then I think she even stepped back from even that. And she says it's like a fantasy romance. So romance fantasy, more or less.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense, because I got to the closet scene and I was like, what? This can't be.
Like, this isn't but kids can't read this.
I know, it's like, oh my god, cover your eyes. But it makes sense that it's a new adult series. And going off of that, this is technically a banned book because in 2022, or it's a banned series, I shouldn't say, but in 2022, according to the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom, A Court of Mist and Fury was tied for the 10th most banned and challenged book in the U.S. So gotta love that. I absolutely love that we're reading a banned
I think it's
series.
hilarious. Especially considering, like, this is, like, one of the most mild books in her series. And, I mean, other than, of course, like, the Throne of Glass series, like I said, is YA. But this specific book, quite tame.
Yeah. Well, and this one wasn't banned. A Court of Mist and Fury was the one that was
makes
banned.
more sense.
Well, okay, and
that
that's
makes
also
much more sense to me.
That's also why I was so confused, because everyone was like, yeah, this is like the tame one compared to like the rest of the series, thinking that it's YA. So then I was like, this is the tame one for young adults reading this book? Like, oh my god. And then I was educated, and now I understand, and now I'm much better with it. But, you know, this book is still massively popular. Over 36.7 thousand people added this to their Goodreads TBR list on January 1st of this year. So
wow.
It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. There is a Hulu adaptation in the works, though there's some talk that she has since pulled back because she deleted her original Instagram post from March 2021 that was talking about the show. They're supposedly working with Ron D. Moore, who is the creator of another romantic fantasy series turned TV show, Outlander. Which Ella and I just recorded an episode. By the time this has been released, that one also has been released. So if you haven't listened, go listen to that one. But yes, which I think they did such a freaking good job with that. So I would be really excited if they come back with this series, but who knows? We shall see.
Yeah, and I will also say, like, the fact that this series is banned kind of makes me laugh, because my high school and middle school library had way more graphic books. So, and I was reading this stuff in high school, so say what you want.
Well, Sarah J. Maas is a kid. Nice transition. Sarah J. Maas started writing her first series when she was 16 years old, which then became Throne of Glass. She is also known for, as we keep referencing, Crescent City. Her Crescent City series, which the third one comes out as we're recording this.
I think the 30th.
Comes out the 30th. Yeah, so 10 days from now. And she used to write Sailor Moon fan fiction in her youth, and she also grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So, that's Sarah J. Maas. Let's dive right in. I mean, what are we drinking today?
Oh, crap. Let me go grab something. Hold on, actually, I will. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. We'll cut this. We are drinking a cran raspberry spritz.
Oh, wow. That was quick to make a full cocktail. Oh.
It's just champagne and ocean spray.
I love that. We went a little hard in the paint last night. So I am drinking a chamomile tea out of a very...
That's adorable.
It's a nice...
It's a very Fey cup.
Yes, I was going to say it's a very like medieval looking cup. So that's... for our listeners, that's what it looks like. But anyways,
if I sound out of breath, I just randomly made a cocktail.
Yeah, we're good. We commit to it. Let's get into our plot summary. So, when 19-year-old huntress Feyre kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal immortal faeries who once ruled her world. At least, he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the faerie Tamlin transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairy lands. An ancient, wicked shadow is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. There's a lot more that happens, but I'm sure we'll get into it as we talk. But basically, this is a Beauty and the Beast fanfic, is what it boils down.
Yep.
They even model Tamlin like almost perfectly after the Beast in the movie. So I say that because I would love to talk about your first impressions, because again, I went into this completely blind. I didn't even know it was a Beauty and the Beast fanfic type situation. So after like closing the book, first impressions, I was like, you know what? I liked it. It was based in something familiar, yet she gives you like she builds off of that, adding those magical elements that is new, building on that, adding that magical new world that you're not used to. So I liked it. Like initial feelings.
Yeah, I think from the get-go, I think having read her other series, this one wouldn't have necessarily called my attention as much, and so in that way I guess my friend was right in suggesting somewhat that I skip this, where you're getting into the meatier part of the series a little bit later on. I think this book kind of starts off slow, other than the fact that her door's all busted down by this crazy fae, but I think in general, like, compared to how some of her other ones first start, I think this one was a little bit slower, and then we get into, like, the more of the meat of it in, like, the second part of the book.
Yes, I think, like, what you said makes sense. I mean, like, I guess the whole hype surrounding it fell a little flat with this first book, which I hear from everyone that this is not, like, you know, book 2's where it's at, and then like from there it builds. And so it's like, I understand that this was a little slower, a little like her getting her feet under her, like us trying to get our feet under us while we're reading, trying to establish ourselves. I didn't mind the world building as much. Like, I think it was interesting. It actually reminded me a lot of Red Queen and how that one starts. But it, like, I liked the beginning a lot. I liked the end a lot. Where it lost me was, like, the Beauty and the Beast of it all. Like, I think, like, I came in and I was, like, asked one of my coworkers, dude, when do these masks come off? Because I am distracted and they're silly and it makes zero sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you felt.
So I think this book did a really good job, that first part of, like, giving me more about Feyre, like, establishing her as a character. And I think that's vital, because later on, like, we see, like, Under the Mountain, how all of those things play into her as a character. Mm-hmm. And even further down the line in the series, like, how that really, like, shows who she is and how she decides things and what are deal breakers for her because of her life before and because of her life in the Spring Court and how that has kind of developed and her relationship with Tamlin. I think that the masks were silly, but I also think of it as, like, a masquerade thing, and obviously, like, they can't take them off. It's not like, oh, like, we're just keeping these on to freak you out, or because we don't want you to know our identity. So I think, like, once you kind of have the why behind it, and you're like, oh, this is a curse, like, this isn't supposed to happen.
No, I just thought it was funny, and it really distracted me from, like, her describing him, because then I'm like, I guess the image that just kept coming into my brain was, like, a Cinderella story. Like Chad Michael Murray, and now I'm like, Tamlin is Chad Michael Murray to me forever. And like, that is just, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, he's very handsome. I guess I want to know, how do you feel about Tamlin? Like, what are your thoughts on Tamlin, and how do you feel about him?
Oh, girl, do I have thoughts. I'm so glad you asked. I don't like him. I think he is a brooding, whiny baby. I think that I just think he's, like, he's fine. But, like, this is one of my biggest qualms with this first book, is I don't think that him and her have, like, any sexual tension really until they get into that closet. And, like, I think even their sex scene, like, it felt very disconnected. I think because Tamlin was so closed off and he was so, like, kind of like, you know, I didn't want this life, like, chose me kind of deal. I guess if you're going to be in that much power, it would, to me, would be, like, sexier if you owned it and kind of like Reese. And I was like, I can get behind that. I like him and her, and Feyre's, you know, whatever's going on between them so much more than what I like about Tamlin and her, because I think it's, I don't know, he just feels like too this is so bad. Oh god. Relationship advice. He just feels too safe for her. Personally, he feels just very boring and vanilla. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I have heard a lot of girls say, especially regarding the first book, that how much they love Tamlin and, like, they fell for him and da-da-da-da. And, like, reading these books, like, I was like, how do they get to this point? Like, I want to see how, like, Feyre and Tamlin's relationship starts. And so I was just kind of, like, not wowed. I think the first time I felt like there was a little bit more sexual tension was around Calamai. I swear to God, I know I'm not probably saying it right. but when honestly, I'm going to be completely honest, I felt more sexual tension between her and Lucien than I felt between between her and Tamlin. But having said that, I think the only time that I kind of felt like, oh, was when she was, like, backed into, like, a corner right after Calamai, and he's like, I had smelled you, and, like, I knew you were there, and then I looked for you, but I couldn't find you, which I also think Calamai is a really weird type of thing. Like, I understand it, I get it, but on the same note, like, I think if you were trying to woo and win over a girl, to decide to participate in such an event so you know, it just kind of throws me off when you're trying to like really establish a relationship with one person. Then you're like, well, it's something I have to do. And then being very vague about the whole goings on of Calamai and not telling her.
Yeah.
And then just being like, oh, by the way, he has to go bed someone, and so the ground will be fertile or whatever. And like, for someone who's looking at the last possible hope for your kingdom, you would think that you'd put a little less focus on the ritual of Calamai and a little bit more focus on the girl that's right in front of you, the one who is supposed to break the curse. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because yes, the that scene was like, oh, okay, like just bite her and like, yes, absolutely. But then you realize that you're like, well, it's not him. Like, he's overtaken by the magics of,
Right.
you know, the magical powers of the land. So you're like, well, and then he's gonna go back into like meh, boring.
But also, if he hadn't have done that, she would have never bumped into Mr. Sexy Pants. And, you know, with the suave type of, hello, I've been looking for you. Like, wow, all right. And on top of that, she was like, he was the most beautiful man I've ever seen. I was like, girl, say less. I love me a man with dark hair and light eyes. So.
Yeah, it was, I think, like, also, I don't know if, like, Sarah J. Maas intended to write it this way, but she totally, like, put Feyre as just, like, looking at Rhys like he is just this god among men, which, like, he is. And then, like, Tamlin's just, like, your cute little guy next door, and, like, he's beautiful, but he's
pretty.
not, he's not, like, you know, making me, like, stop and, like, forget all my words type deal.
Tamlin's pretty. Rhys is gorgeous.
Yes. And then I think, like, you know, as her challenge, like when she goes into the Under the Mountain court and she, you know, starts her challenges. Sorry. We just had like a full-on conversation in the car about like what we thought the worm looked like. And,
oh, God. I know what you're going to say.
The worm from SpongeBob. It's
the worm from SpongeBob. Everyone says it. Everyone. I kid you not, like, that is, like, a running joke with the whole, like, Sarah J. Maas fandom, and that is what the worm looks like.
Well, but it's that, or it's the dune worm. It's, like, the...
Yeah, like
it's
the
like
sandworms.
Yeah, between, like, something that looks like a cat's bum hole and the worm from SpongeBob, which is like, meh.
I think when they say worm, it's like, I know it's spelled W-O-R-M, and I think they mean like W-Y-R-M. So when you look it up, it looks more like a dragon with no arms or legs. But honestly, no, I agree with you 100%. I'm like, the way that she described her, I'm thinking... At first, of course, I was thinking also SpongeBob worm, but then I was like, no, it like if you really pay attention to how it's described, I think it would be closer to like the sandworms, or like from the sandworms from like Beetlejuice.
Yes,
is also what I thought. But yeah, I just thought like interesting, but also one of my favorite parts was hearing that only one person put a bet on you, Feyre, and guess who it was?
Well, and I was fully expecting like, Lucien, and then I was like,
period. Oh. No, not Lucien, not Tamlin, no. Our boy Rhys.
Yeah, I also think I lost a lot of respect for Tamlin, like, in the court, when, like, he just, like, wasn't... I get it. Like, you're not giving anything away, you're, like, stone cold killer, whatever. But, like, not one glance. Not one longing look at her. I don't know. And then I'm like, they have like the little hand touch, which is like, ooh, like that's fun.
Oh.
But then it's like, I don't know, I can't. And then you have Rhys, who's like literally speaking to her through a tattoo on her hand of like, don't choose that, don't do that. And then like, I don't know, but it's just like one of the scene, you know, the scene where he's like, don't cry in front of her, don't let her see your like, don't let her see you cry, and you can cry all you want when you get back to your cell, but don't do it. Like, stand tall and walk out of here. I was like, go, coach her, get it. So,
I just, like, wonder, what do you think about, like, Rhys as, like, someone who is under the mountain and kind of is, like, doing Amarantha's bidding?
I don't mind it, because, okay, let me get this straight. So his dad killed Tamlin's family?
Yes.
Or, okay. Because I think it's, like, him going, Tamlin's never gonna believe me if I tell him, like I'm trying to help you, my guy. Because after, like, what my family did to his family, like, we're on bad terms, and that makes sense. Right. And I think, like, Rhys just is like, I'll embrace it. Like, they're gonna call me this, I'll embrace it, and, like, really make Amarantha believe the story, make everyone believe the story, and then you get a little too caught in playing the role that now all of a sudden it's like, well, no, I actually am gonna, like, be good, but, like, I've done a lot of shitty stuff. Like,
I think you can almost say the same to Feyre's character, in a way. Kind of. Like, when she kills, like, the Fae. Like, it wasn't necessarily doing anything, but she knew, like, if I kill this wolf, like, it will feed my family. If I kill this wolf, it will possibly protect it from killing any amount of villagers or my sisters or, like, continue, like, everything. She continues, puts up that front while she's in the spring court until, like, you know, she gets a little bit more comfortable. So I think in that respect, like, her and Rhys are similar.
yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we'll definitely see more of Rhys, because she has the tattoo still, and she made a deal.
Yes.
What do you think of her sisters and how she grew up and their dynamic?
When I first started it, I kept thinking of Feyre as the oldest, just by the way she acted. Or even the middle child. I kept thinking, like, is it Elaine? Is her younger sister?
Yeah.
Youngest sister? Yeah, I kept thinking Elaine was the youngest. And so but then, like, once I realized that Feyre was, like, the youngest, I was like, fuck this family. I'm like, she's out there grinding, and then, like, you know, they're spending all their money, and then she comes back, and then Nesta's just, like, gone a little batshit crazy, and then, which I kind of liked, and then I liked Nesta a lot more when she came back, and, like, shared in the trauma, and was like, no, don't tell me, like, another lie, because I know you weren't with that dying aunt. And I think, like, I liked her then. I think her dad is just, like, a straight up, like, I don't know. I don't love him. I think, you know.
Agreed.
Suck it up, buttercup kind of deal. Like, your family's starving. So that's how I feel. I don't mind them, but I think Nesta would be my favorite out of the whole family.
As you will continue on to read, and this may come as a shock, Nesta is actually my favorite character in the whole series.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not telling you why, and you'll have to get there eventually.
You'll have to keep.
I do love Feyre, obviously. Obviously, I do love Feyre. Obviously, I do love Elaine as well. I'm a big fan of Elaine. Some people are not. I'm a very big fan of Elaine, and everyone else can shove it. I love her so much.
I don't mind her.
I think, like, going forward, as we continue on this series, which is so exciting, obviously I'll have more and more questions for you and how you're feeling about things. Do you have any more questions for me?
Yes, I do actually. The ending, them turning her into a high fae.
Yeah.
It makes things interesting. What were your initial thoughts when you read that?
So I was like, it's crazy how it happens.
Yeah.
And I think the part of her dying is really interesting. Like that she's almost above it all. Like she can see everything that's kind of happening. And then just like I think it's going to be a huge shock for her. Like finding a place, cuz now she knows she can't go back. She can't go home. Like she is now and forever in Perithian. She can't go home because, the humans hate high fae and are completely afraid of them for good reason. I mean, things had happened in the past, but I think it's going to be hard for her because she's had so many lies fed to her that it's like kind of like peeling back. What is true? What isn't true? What is there to learn? This whole new kingdom, this new culture that you've never experienced in your life, you're now going to be thrusted into, and this is your life now. And like, yes, you got a little taste of it, but at the time, who's to say she didn't think the only thing out there was like the spring court, or she didn't really have she went into the library, so she knows they're separated into different like courts or whatever. But like actually like seeing that and then experiencing that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And then knowing that there's not really a safe place, other than of course the spring court, there's not really a safe place for her to go back to like there was in the mortal realm. And I think that will be a really interesting transition for her and even for her family, because like Nesta was worried to the point where she tried to go across the wall.
Yeah.
And so, I think she knows now that, like, Feyre is more than capable of taking care of herself, but I think the problem is that, in my opinion, like, if I was her sister, I'd be like, well, that doesn't matter. She just went to go fight some crazy witch under the mountain, or some crazy curse or what have you. Like, they didn't know exactly why she was going back or where she was going back to and what was happening. Like, it wasn't really explained. So I guess in that way it's great because she doesn't really know about, what's her name? Amarantha. Like, her family didn't really know about Amarantha, but...
Yeah.
Amarantha was a cruel person. She was
wild.
She was a cruel female.
Yeah.
It's not even a person. Fae.
Deserved the end that she got. Just absolutely obliterated by Tamlin.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. Yeah, no, I agree with pretty much all you're saying. I think it helps the story a lot, because I think if you were to keep her human, you would have this continuing storyline of, like, she's so fragile. Like, how are you going to, like, go into battle and have her, like, actually hold her own and actually contribute, and actually, like, do something? And I think, like, that helps it not be just, like, almost like Bella from Twilight, where they're like, protect her at all costs. And like, she's just standing there, like...
She could die at any moment.
Yeah.
She's not immortal like us. She'll die. And, like, that even plays into the whole, like, her and Tamlin romance. It's like, if she was a human, ain't no chance she's staying with Tammy. She's dead in a couple of years. That's, like, what? A blink of an eye for them? They live to be, like, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
What did you think of the very, very end? That scene between her and Rhys when they're like kind of saying goodbye.
Ooh. I loved it because it played into my hope, which is they are definitely gonna bang. I know it. I know it in my heart. And I just like the way she wrote him as like being a little softer and like kind of having this like, but I don't know what it meant when he like looked at her. I don't know what that means. And so is it, wait, now it's coming to me, is it because he wait, no, because he was there when they turned her into a high fae.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Do you find out?
Mm-hmm. In the next book.
Okay. Great, because I don't know. I don't have any speculations.
Okay. I guess, like, what do you think about, like, her going back to her now fae life, going back to live with Tamlin and all that?
It's fine. I mean, like,
it's fine. Not the
place
Beauty and the
sounds
Beast
nice.
you were hoping for?
No. Yes. I mean, like, I'm happy they're together. I think, like, I have a feeling that she's gonna keep a lot of things bottled up inside, and it's gonna come to fruition in a really nasty way, and Tamlin's not gonna know how to deal with it because he is so emotionally stunted himself. So I think,
Word.
yeah, I have a feeling that that's not going to go well. And I think it was, like, a little cheesy for them to, like, you know, we're looking upon our land and it's our home. Fine.
It's fine.
I'm fine with it.
It's really interesting to me because, like, you are one of the only people that I've heard that it's like, I could live without Tamlin. Like, from the
Really?
first read. From the first read, like, really. Like, people, like, absolutely fall in love with him. And, like, I'm on the same page as you, but also, you know,
Yeah.
there's some foresight of, like, Tamlin's character that I have that you don't necessarily have. Not to say that things don't happen between them, or not. I'm not telling you. but I just think, like, in general, like, it would also have been a red flag to me, even if I didn't know things that happened, like, later on, the way that he acted. And also, like, I'm sorry, but the second you brought in someone who looks like Rhys, I was like, oh, it doesn't even matter. Like, it wouldn't matter to me if it was, like, the absolute worst, if the man was like Amarantha. That's the unfortunate part. I'm like, you gave me a blonde man, and you expected me not to choose the brunette. I think, like, even in that series we read, like, Daughter of the Moon Goddess,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I mean, do I care that he's the bad guy? No.
No.
Will I continue to thirst after him? 100%.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's just interesting that you and I are kind of on the same page with, like, genuinely not liking Tamlin. Like, even though, like, he is supposed to be our love interest, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think I blame you, genuinely, because we keep reading books where, like, the tall, dark, and handsome is, like, the main love interest. And so that's, I guess, where my brain goes, is, like, I'm much more drawn to, like, the bad guy, rather.
You're welcome.
Which
every girl is.
Yeah. Which is so funny, because I'm married to, like, the nicest, most kind man in the entire world, and, like, so far from the bad boy, which I love. Because that's what I would choose for my forever husband. But it's fun to be able to read, like, the bad boy of it all. And I think, like, there's just a lot more depth to his character, I think, is where I come at it. Is, like, Tamlin also got big red flags for, like, kidnapping her, and again, I don't, like, Beauty and the Beast was never and is not my favorite, like, princess story because of that. It just feels very, like, I don't know, it's Stockholm, whatever it is,
Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes, where you fall in love with your captor, and I just don't like it. I mean, Rhys is also, you know, permanently marked her, so that's not great either, but
a little Stockholm Syndrome as well.
little Stockholm Syndrome as well. She's just in a rough spot in
She
general.
can't win.
No. back to your human boy who's just, like, tossing up in the hay. He's a safe choice.
Well, she can't. He's married now.
Yeah. She's high fantasy.
Yeah, you're like,
whatever
it's alright. Well, now she can't go back at all, so...
That's true.
Or they'll burn her. Like a witch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's it. I don't know. I just got weird vibes from him, and I didn't really get a whole lot of, like, love tension between them. So I think that's my biggest thing, too. It's like I didn't get the chance to fall in love when they fell in love.
Yeah. Also, I think, like I said, I think her and Lucian have more chemistry. He's sassy and he's funny, and he had some good one-liners, I'll say.
I know.
He's great. Not a good friend, but great.
No. But, like, even them just, like, her, you know, her going hunting with Lucian, like, that whole scene is, like, you feel much more, like, I felt like since I had just finished reading Outlander, I felt like I was reading a scene of, like, Claire and Jamie going off on a ride together. Like, that's how I
hilarious.
felt. Because they're, like, giving each other shit and, like, all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Like. Yeah. And then, no, nothing.
I feel.
Oh, actually, one more question before we get into final ratings. To do with Lucian, I was talking with friends in the car, and they had just started rereading the series as well as the new Crescent City book comes out. And they were saying that the second time through, they really liked Lucian's character the first time through. The second time through, they didn't like his character as much.
Facts.
Is that facts? Okay.
I genuinely feel that there are multiple reasons. I think it has to do with, like, later on. I will say, when I first reading this first book, I think is very different than reading the rest of the series. This is my first time reading the first book. So, for me, it was like, oh, I get why everyone likes Lucian. But having started on the second book and then continued on with the series, I haven't liked him. And I still don't love him. I don't dislike him as much as I did. But there are reasons that I'm kind of just really thrown off by his character. Because in a lot of ways, like, he is really kind and really... like, he's a good male, as, like, they like to say. But I think when he's put to the test, I don't think he makes good decisions. And I think that kind of continues on throughout the series of him, in my opinion, making, like, really questionable decisions and continues to make questionable decisions. So, like, I don't love him. I like him in this specific book. I really like him. I think he's really sassy. But I also was extremely disappointed in him for not trying harder and then also, like, putting her up with the cereal and then not helping when she screamed immediately. I was like, she's your last hope. And then you were just like, yeah... I hesitated, by the way, like, I wasn't gonna come save you. But, you know, he still comes down to, like, kind of aid her in the ways that he can, somewhat.
Yeah. I did think he kind of half-assed it, but whatever.
I mean, yes, because, yes, I think 100% yes, he half-assed it. I get that he's afraid. I get that he's, like, I have people here who I care about, who really is Tamlin and his mother. But I don't think that's an excuse, because when the odds are stacked against everyone, at that point it's kind of like, yeah, I could lose, like, these near and dear people to me or my own life. But what does that mean for the whole of Perithian? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of would... He doesn't have a hero's heart to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what kind of bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Fair.
he could be a better person. Male, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Whatever.
All right. I love it. Well, let's get into final ratings of book 1 of ACOTAR.
Okay.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. I said I liked it because, again, it was something familiar, yet you build on it with this, like, magical world, giving, new characters and new, rules. And she really does a good job at, like, establishing you right from the start of, like, this is the world, this is how it works. Here's who the bad guys are according to this person. Here's who the bad guys are according to this person. This is the war that happened. She just, like, does a very good job at giving you a very good background of the world you're living in, without it being, like, too crazy. It, like, I hear that the main complaint is, like, it was such a slow build because of this world building. I didn't mind it. Like, I didn't think it was, like, too slow, to be totally honest. Like, I think it was fine. And the thing that I didn't like was, like, it felt like a slow build between Tamlin and Feyre, and then all of a sudden, it's, like, they're together.
You're, like, hot and heavy.
Yeah. I think that's why I like Rhys and her so much better, is because there's, like, this error of they can't get together right away because of all these obstacles, and then they're just gonna start, like, building that tension, and you just don't get that between Tamlin and Feyre, in my opinion. But whatever. And then I just said I'm hooked. I'm ready to continue this series. So if you hook me, I'll give you a 4.
All right. I think on Goodreads I did give it a 5, but I would have given it in real life like a 4.5. For me, definitely not Sarah's best book, but again, she's world building. She is creating things that will play into other things down the line, and I think she did a really great job at creating this heinous, disgusting, horrible antagonist, which is Amarantha. And, like, absolutely vile because of, like, how much hate she has in her heart, and, like, the way she treats these other fays. And on top of that, like, creating this curse and, just the whole thing of it all. Like, the world building is amazing, genuinely, as per usual with Sarah. But I think there are some bits that, like, this was a slow-moving book for me compared to her other stuff. Like, Crescent City, you get into it immediately, and you're a little confused, because you're like, what's going on? This one's a little less confusing, but it's a little less heavy as well. So I feel like in that way, I guess it's just not... I mean, definitely her books from this series, like, further down the line, they're just more... There's more to eat up, There's just so much more going on. And I think in this one, it was just a little bit... It falls a little bit for me, but not enough that I would ever say anything bad about Sarah, because this is an amazing book, and I continue to love the world building and everything that she does. The little Easter eggs she plants throughout all of her series, so that one day we'll all eventually be like, oh, that's why it happened that way. So, I think really cool.
Yeah. I love it. Well, let's get into our pairings, where we will pick drinks, TV shows, other books, and movies that might pair well with today's book. And I'm guessing we'll probably only do this once throughout the whole series, because it's probably going to be very similar as we keep continuing on. But let's start out with drink.
I just did a red sangria. I think, like, throwing in some bits of, like, springtime fruit, but also you have that blood red kind of deal to really, I don't know, bring everything together. So you have that, like, sunshine, fruit, you're in the spring court, but then there's all that blood red, Amarantha is the blight or whatever.
Yes. Love it. I kind of similar. I did Out East Cotes de Provence Rosé, which is the bottle that's like that has a little rose on the top. It's like a rosé with like a little rose.
Yeah.
But I felt like it went well because I went off of like spring court, so you want something like springy, and something light, and then it also has the roses, which ties into the rose garden that Tamlin's parents would use. So anyways, that's what I chose. TV show.
I think anything like high fae. So I was thinking more or less like Rings of Power. Again, not 100% exactly like this, but again, it's high fae. It's interesting. You have really strong female protagonists, and I think that is really important.
I chose this is so trashy, but I chose out of like I went off of kind of the love triangle, so of course I had to choose Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
I mean, they embody, you have Damon, who's the bad boy, and you have Stefan. Yeah, Stefan. God, it's been so long since I've watched it. Who's like, the Tamlin of it all, like the good guy who's trying to do it. Maybe that's where it comes from.
Maybe.
Because I was definitely a Damon person. So.
Me too.
There you go.
It's so funny to hear when like my friends tell me, "Oh, I was the Stefan girl." I was like, "Really?"
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
You sure?
Okay. Book.
I just said continue on. Go and read A Court of Mist and Fury. And
we will read it.
We will.
So stay tuned.
So excited.
I chose two. So I did Crescent City series, but you would have to finish this series and then go read Crescent City series. But
I mean,
it did link
you don't have to,
episode.
but it would be best.
Yeah,
you should.
You should.
You should.
I mean, you could you pulled me and just read Crescent City before this, so it's a little weird, but yeah. That's one. And then my other one was another Beauty and the Beast retelling, which is the classic Beastly, which they made into a movie starring Vanessa Hudgens. And it was so bad. But, I think you should definitely give it a go if you're really looking for another Beauty and the Beast.
You're into that.
Movie.
I just kind of picked more of like whimsical vibe, with a little bit of humor. So I picked Enchanted. I think that's really funny, and it goes into like quote unquote the evil stepsisters, which I don't think Nesta and Elaine are evil. I just think they're not doing anything. So, but I do think it kind of has that fun thrust into an adventure type of vibe.
I like it. I like it a lot. I also chose two movies for this because I couldn't not choose Beauty and the Beast. I put the most recent like live action version because I feel like that was what kept popping into my brain when I was reading it. Not the cartoon version, but go watch the cartoon version because it's always fun. And then the other one again is such trash, but I couldn't not think of it when I was reading, which is Twilight. You have pretty much the entire plotline of Twilight in this book as well. Yes. That's mine.
I think you could also even say there's a French version of Beauty and the Beast. And that one's a little bit darker. And so I think that one's a little bit better than the Disney one.
There it is. So we just read the first book, and I think we're deciding right here on the podcast that we will continue the series and we will continue to make episodes recapping each book of this series because why the heck not? Yeah, if we're going to be reading them anyways. So, Sierra, how do you feel that now that I've embarked on this journey?
I'm so excited. I've like been wanting you to do this because I was like, oh man, she's gonna want to do the Crescent City on this podcast. I'm like, I know her. I am so excited because now you'll have a lot more context behind some more of what's going to happen in Crescent City 3, and I think it's really important because Sarah's a mastermind and she continues to blow us away every single day. Every single day. Every time I read it, I find something new. So I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for this journey we're about to take.
It'll be so fun. I can't wait. So stay tuned. And for our next episode of this, that will probably combine 2 of the books. So thank you so much. And we will be back with another episode next month. So cheers.
Cheers.